You might remember us, the ones in the red shirts.
We can't afford guns being the leading cause of death for children and teens in this country.
Whether you're Republicans or Democrats, you can't look away.
We're not going to shut up until we get the change we deserve.
Thoughts and prayers are no longer enough. We need to take action now.
You didn't get this far by saying you can't. You didn't get this far by just being mediocre. You moms demand action, and that's what we demand.
Welcome to Movement Builders, a show about the people ending gun violence in America, all of us.
I'm Kaylin Ford.
And I'm Nikita McDaniel. Y'all, the first months of the Trump-Vance administration have been callous, chaotic, and cruel, with headlines coming fast and furious and uncertainty reigning supreme. But guess what? We haven't stopped either. From filling state capitals on advocacy days to driving more than 100,000 messages to the Senate about Trump's FBI director, we are getting loud. And more importantly, we are staying loud because we cannot afford to be silent.
That's right, Nikita. And let's be real. We're dealing with an administration that's hell-bent on rolling out the red carpet for the gun industry and rolling back our progress any way they can. We are living in unprecedented times, and this moment requires us to organize like never before. But luckily, we're ready to meet these challenges with the movement we've built and the leaders we have, all of you.
Yes, we're working smarter than ever before, and our guest for this episode is leading the way when it comes to our strategy for passing bills and saving lives. We are honored to have Monisha Henley, Senior Vice President of Government Affairs at Everytown, Moms Demand Action, and Students Demand Action, with us on the show today. Welcome, Monisha.
Welcome to the show, Monisha. Thank you so much for being here with us. We're really excited to speak with you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you all.
All right, well, let's jump into it. Monisha, you have been with us in this fight for a long time. Would you mind sharing with us what brought you to this movement?
Sure. So I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, and it is a small city that unfortunately has a very large gun violence problem. I remember as a child, there were times where I was not allowed to go to the corner store during the day because my parents were very worried about what it meant for me to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Only to fast forward to my sophomore year in college, where I was attending a small school in North Carolina, and I was going to a party. It was a Friday night, and the party was like our kickback into the second semester. It was January, and during that party, some students came from another college nearby, and there was an argument that happened over a football game. And that argument escalated, and somebody had a gun and pulled it out. And as a result, I lost a friend that night, as well as 4 of my other classmates were shot. And that is just not a reality that anybody should ever have to live through or go through. And I always knew that I was going to work in public service. I always knew I wanted to work in government, but I didn't know what it meant to work on this issue until I was a federal lobbyist for the American Nurses Association and the Pulse nightclub shooting happened. And that's when I got to know Everytown. That's when I got to know moms. We at the nurses declared it a public health epidemic. And I'd been working on healthcare for most of that time. And I was like, I want to do this issue. And I want to be effective on this issue. You know, I always say that being a survivor of gun violence should be a small club. And unfortunately, that is a club that we have way too many members. I mentioned I was a federal lobbyist, and Everytown was looking to expand their federal team. And so I applied for a job, and they called me, and they were like, actually, we just hired. What do you think of the states? And I was like, that's like never been what I do, but sure, I'll have the conversation. And I realized, like, you know, things were changing, and it's not all about Congress. It's all about engagement there, that the states were really leading the way. And on an issue like this, you had to make it local. You had to make it personal. And so when they offered me the job to join the states team, I took it, and here I am.
That's amazing, Monisha. And thank you for sharing your story as a survivor with us. Thank you for sharing the memory of your friend and your classmates with us. I'm so sorry you experienced that and your classmates experienced that. No one should have to experience that at a party, at a celebration, on their campus, And we're so grateful for you in this movement to be here with us, fighting so hard to make sure that it doesn't happen to other communities.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I've known you all this time and never knew your personal story. My heart goes out to you, and also how you're honoring with action is commendable. So thank you for answering the call. Let's talk about what we're seeing at the federal level with gun safety right now. We saw homicides drop 25% after we helped pass the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, and violent crime is at a nearly 50-year low. And yet the Trump-Vance administration and their allies in Congress are trying to undo that progress. Tell us what they want to do.
Sure. Where do I start? I think it's important to acknowledge those stats you just put out there because they are so crucial. And I think the narrative that is being laid is that America's not safe. And their agenda is claiming to make America safer. But let's be real. They're actually trying to unwind all the incredible work that we have done, not just in the last years, but in the last decade. And so one of the first things that we saw on this issue from the administration was them giving instructions to the Attorney General, Pam Bondi. And I think it's worth noting that now Attorney General Pam Bondi, when she was Florida Attorney General, was actually AG during Parkland. She saw firsthand what it meant to have a bipartisan group of people get together and pass life-saving legislation. And now she's been handed the pen to come up with an idea on how we protect the Second Amendment. And we saw that they came up with their first idea. And that idea is around bypassing long-standing funding restrictions that prevents the ATF from restoring gun rights to prohibited persons. And what does that actually mean in real language? I'm talking about violent criminals now having the opportunity to get their guns back. I'm talking about domestic violence abusers having the opportunity to get their gun back. Just last year, we saw the Supreme Court make a ruling in the Rahimi case saying that domestic abusers should not have their guns. And this rule could totally pull the thread on that. It moves the process away from the ATF back into DOJ. It still acknowledges that there will be a process, but if we're being really thoughtful and real here, do I trust this administration to come up with a strong process? And so that's why we can't take this kind of stuff for granted. So I'm really hyped on that, but unfortunately my list is not short of what else they are looking to do. We know that they have been in a nomination process where they named people like Kash Patel to not only be the head of the FBI, but to be the interim director for the ATF. This is a man who has made it very clear that he is okay with going after his enemies. And what does it mean to have the authority of the FBI and of the ATF to be going after his enemies or the administration's enemies? So again, these are things that we have seen that the administration has already done that are not trying to protect us and keep our communities safe. And then I can't just pick on the administration. I need to acknowledge also congressional Republicans.
Yes.
And what we're seeing in Congress right now is congressional Republicans want to pass a federal concealed carry mandate. I started with talking about I came to this movement as a state lobbyist, as somebody who is really working to help the states, lead the way on this. And why is the federal government saying that the work that the states have done, reaching out to protect their constituents, is no longer relevant? And that is why we know that we have to fight CCM again, just like we've done in the past. We've done this before, and we will keep doing it.
And I just want to point out, Monisha, I think it's really important to talk about a concealed carry mandate and what that means. Some of our volunteers were here for the first time that we fought this policy back in the first Trump administration, and some of them are new to our movement. But the concealed carry mandate, as you said, would gut our state gun laws. It would require every state to recognize every other state's permitting requirements, even those that don't require any safety training or a background check to get a concealed carry permit at all. And so for those of us that live in states with strong permitting requirements, we would have people walking around with concealed loaded guns in public places that perhaps had no safety training and no background check. And for those of our volunteers who live in permitless states where this is already the reality, we have heard resoundingly that they don't want this reality for the rest of America. They want to strengthen their state's gun laws rather than see other states adopt weak standards like they have. So We are going to be fighting against this hard, and we're going to have more ways for everyone listening to get involved in this campaign as we go forward.
Yes, it is very clear that our work in the states is more important than ever. What are some of the other big priorities at the state level that we are doing or considering doing to shore up against the reckless moves of Trump, Vance, and the congressional Republicans, Monisha?
Sure. So we have a lot of amazing stuff happening in the states. For example, we are running assault weapons campaigns in places like Rhode Island and Hawaii. I think it's very easy to think like, oh, in these bluer states, this stuff is really easy. It's not. Mm-hmm. This is actually the furthest we've ever come in Hawaii on an assault weapons bill. It's the first time it's ever moved through a chamber in 6 years.
Wow.
Which is a huge deal.
It is.
And like now it's our job to get that across the finish line because we need this momentum. We need to prove and show that this movement is not going anywhere. And we're going to continue to fight to make our states stronger and safer and better. We're also working on really innovative policies in places like California and New York around what does it mean to have a firearm, be able to utilize a switch. And we know things like Glock are the most used guns in crimes and violent crimes. So like, how can we make sure Glocks are not in our streets anymore? And when I'm talking about that, it's important for me to note, what does a switch mean? And why is this so relevant? It basically turns your handgun into a machine gun. And that's why we're really excited to work in places like Alabama that just signed into law a Glock switch ban.
Yes.
A Republican governor
Amazing.
signed that into law because we know that this is the type of stuff we don't want to see anymore. We've also had the opportunity to work on this in places like Mississippi in the past.
Yes.
And we're going to continue to work on this in Maryland and Illinois. So like you're hearing me talk about a red and purple and blue state strategy because Glocks are everywhere. And so we should be addressing them everywhere. And then we're going to continue to do our bread and butter work. There is an amazing permit to purchase bill that is moving right now in Washington, where we know when we talk about background checks, one of the strongest ways you can set up that system is to have a permit, to have training requirements. And so we're really excited to see the momentum in Washington. And then we're, of course, still playing some defense. So even though the states are doing a lot of amazing work, we still are seeing places like North Carolina that are just rapidly moving a permitless bill. I just talked about the importance of permits in Washington, which is why we don't want to see places like North Carolina take away the right to training and having permits.
And Nikita, that strikes close to home for you. You are in North Carolina and doing this work in your community in North Carolina.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I've been putting in my 2 cents and helping to pitch in where I can on the community partner side, helping to mobilize against it because it is a fight that is continuous and we don't want to see it happen.
Right. North Carolina's kind of been like the final state to not do this. And they just had an amazing election. And we always talk about elections matter. Like they broke the supermajority in the House. They elected again a Democratic governor, a lieutenant governor, an AG. So like this is not the time for them to be going backwards.
Yes.
It is not the time.
We're not going back.
We're not.
We're not going back.
We're going to get
Maybe
loud
try to
and
make
stay
us,
louder.
but we won't do it.
Absolutely.
No, we will not.
I want to talk more about one of the forces that are trying to take us back, which is the gun industry. As you mentioned, Monisha, a lot of these policies and decisions are catering to the gun industry instead of protecting people's lives. A lot of the policies that we're seeing congressional Republicans propose and a lot of the policies that we're seeing the Trump and Vance White House propose. On our last episode of the podcast, we were really fortunate to have Drew Spiegel, an amazing Students Demand Action leader, and Greg Lickenbrock from here at Everytown on with us to talk about the gun industry, who they are, and how their lobbyists try to weaken our gun laws. We know that holding the gun industry accountable for its role in fueling gun violence is a huge priority for us at the state and federal level, especially when they have a seat at the most powerful table in the country right now. So tell us more about what that work looks like across the country and how we're fighting back.
Sure. So I talked a little bit about some of the campaigns we're running, but I think it's really worth talking about the policy that we're running. And as you've acknowledged, and I'm not going to do this better than Greg, but assault weapons are the industry's biggest profit maker. Mm-hmm. And this is literally about putting weapons of war in the hands of everyday citizens. Like, why do you need that? And so that's why we have worked on assault weapons for years, but there's lots of different ways that you can approach it. And one of the ways that we've seen most recently that is super innovative is known as Go Safe. Basically, instead of looking at the features of a firearm, which is what a traditional assault weapons ban or a features test does, this looks at the actual mechanics of the firearm. So looking at the gas operation, like what makes an assault weapon so deadly is the velocity of the bullet being able to go through the chamber at a very rapid pace. And Go Safe actually digs into that. Like if you have a gas operation, maybe that isn't a firearm you need. And when I tell you that I have heard every kooky debate argument on this, including taking us back to Hawaii, the use of needing to have assault weapons so you can fight against feral pigs. Like if you're a hunter and you need an assault weapon, you may not be doing it right.
Right.
I also acknowledge to listeners, I apologize for being a little bit more graphic and not trauma-informed. But I think when we're talking about the destruction of an assault weapon, it's really important to acknowledge what it does, which is truly destroy us. I mentioned a little bit also, transitioning from assault weapons, a little bit on Glocks and why that is so relevant and so important, and why I'm excited to see so many states taking this fight on, whether it's from Glock switches or actually looking to ban any firearm that you can attach a switch to, is because we really need to make sure that the industry is not continuing to find workarounds for their firearms, and that these are really simple things that they can do to adjust that. And instead, they're just making new weapons and more weapons, and they're getting in our communities. And that's also why it's so amazing at Everytown that we're not just doing legislation, we're doing it all. And our litigation team has a Baltimore Glock lawsuit that they have been working on, because it's great to have the litigation and the legislation going at the same time, so the public really understands who's the bad guy here, and it's the industry.
And as you said, Monisha, you know, we know that the gun industry could choose to be part of the solution, and they've had decades to do so, right? In the case of Glock switches, Glock has known that its designs are susceptible to having these switches added to them since the 1980s. So waiting around for them to do the right thing on their own has not worked, which is why we are getting loud every way we can, both in the court of public opinion and in the courts, as you said. And I think that's really exciting work.
Also, we can't afford to wait, so that's why we have to do this now.
Yes.
We can absolutely not afford to wait. I am like almost a day oneer here at Moms Demand Action that's seen us build this movement on strategy, and with brilliant minds coming together and folks leading the way like you, Monisha. So thank you for that. And I will also be remiss if I did not give a huge shout out to our power building states, where our moms and students, they are not involved in the state legislative work right now. However, they are focused on building and growing our movement to sustain this momentum that we've created, so that we can have long-term impact and push back at the federal level. So if we could just talk a little bit more about that side and how we are actually pushing back, because they want us to feel powerless. They want us to feel hopeless, but we are absolutely none of those things. So tell us a little bit about how moms and students are making progress right now and building grassroots power, and how more folks can get involved.
The moms are everywhere. The students are everywhere.
Yes,
like
we
people
are.
know us. They know our shirts. They get nervous when they see us coming. And that's exactly what we want them to do, right? And nothing brings me more joy in my work when they're like, we love you guys. Like, you don't have to keep calling us. It's like, we're going to keep calling you until you do the thing.
Yes.
Like that. And that's like what is so powerful about this movement and about the grassroots. And it's been amazing, like in most recently, to see the New Mexico moms. They're a smaller chapter, but boy, are they mighty.
Yes.
And they were living at the Roundhouse in New Mexico, showing up every day. Our students in Colorado had their own advocacy day where they were like looking at their lawmakers, they're looking at the governor, and they're saying, this is about us. This is our voice, our movement, and we're here to show up for you. And it's cool to see it happening also in some of our bigger chapters in places like California and New York. I used to be the legislative lead for New York, and I knew in New York and Maryland and my home state of Delaware that I could call on those moms any day of the week and they would be there. And since I brought up Delaware, I'm just going to take a moment of personal privilege to acknowledge, like, these are not just my moms. This is my mom, who joined a Moms Demand chapter in Delaware when I started working at Everytown, because This is an issue, as I mentioned, that has been a part of our life forever. She is an immigrant from India who came to America and really saw firsthand how gun violence is so uniquely American.
Yes.
And what it meant to be in our community, in our culture, in our city. And when I joined Everytown, she joined Moms. And she is so active and she loves that chapter. And it's amazing to see that community because we lost our dog a year ago. And the moms were the ones who were there to provide her care and love and support, who showed up with flowers. And so it wasn't just that she's in this fight with them, like she's in life with them. And like, that's just really special.
I love those stories. And we hear so many of those stories from our volunteers about how what starts as a group of volunteers really becomes a really tight-knit circle of friends, family, people who can lean on each other through the ups and downs of life, which we know there are so many of those right now. And I loved the states you shouted out because, as you said, there's so many small and mighty states. We know that North Dakota also recently had a suicide prevention advocacy day where they went and shared stories about firearm suicide and the impact that has. And even these smaller chapters, these smaller groups of volunteers are showing up and speaking truth to power in such an incredible way. And so whether we have hundreds of moms or thousands of moms there, or even a handful of moms and students, as you said, we make an impact. People remember us. People remember our shirts. And as you said, we're going to keep calling them until they do it because don't thank us, join us.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's exactly right. We could not do this work without the volunteers, period. Like, it just wouldn't happen. And I think the best work we do is when we're in this together and it's a partnership that we are engaging on to really make sure that we are creating a culture that we want to see, which is free of gun violence.
Yes. And I think one of the very powerful things that we have in this movement is that we do this work at every level of government, right? And a lot of people see big federal laws that make the front page of a newspaper, but just as important are those state level and local level laws that really impact our lives, that are made at levels of government where in some ways our voices matter even more. We always say if they close the door, we open the window, go through it. Sometimes multiple windows, right? Sometimes
all of the windows.
All of the windows. Sometimes we're waiting in the parking lot because even if the window is closed, we're still going to be there. We're still going to get a moment with somebody, even if it's in an elevator or as they go out to their car. So what are some of the log jams we're seeing right now and how are we getting around them anyway?
Yeah. So honestly, one of the biggest things that I've seen in this year and something that I haven't kind of seen as much in the past years is there's just a lack of courage among our elected officials.
Yes.
And I think it's really, really easy to focus on the Trump administration or to focus on extremists in Congress or at all levels of government. But I'm actually talking about our friends not showing up for us right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have to take that really seriously. We have seen across the country Democratic leadership, Democratic sponsors not rising to the occasion in a way that they should. And the piece that makes me really nervous is this feeling of we don't have to do anything now. We can like do something later. And it's like, do you want to wait for the next tragedy to act? Or should our business be preventing that from happening? Which means
Correct.
You can do this now.
Yes.
And you should be doing this now. And making sure that it actually doesn't matter what letter is next to your name, but reminding our movement that you're either standing with us and doing something to proactively prevent gun violence, or you're standing against us. And if you're standing against us, we're going to make sure that you see us and we see you on election day. We see you, as you said, in the parking lots, that you see us in your social media, because we're not going to stand for that, especially when we know we're under attack. Like, what is the saying with friends like these? I need real friends.
Yes.
And that's why I'm so excited about things that we are doing, like Demand a Seat, like having our people run for office. I'm not waiting for the Democrats to get their act together. I'm going to be handing our bills over to our Demand a Seat elected officials. I'm going to be working with our Demand a Seat volunteers and now elected officials at all levels of government and saying, you are the champions on this issue. You ran on this issue. You know what it means. And we're going to make sure that you are the ones who are getting to lead.
And Nikita just joined the latest Demand a Seat boot camp. She was in Philadelphia.
I did.
Yes.
I'm
See?
here for that. I am here for it.
And-
Guess what? We hold everybody accountable, and we will not wait. We
Exactly.
are who we are waiting for.
And
We
like,
gonna
why
come and
am I
go
trying to
get it.
convince somebody when I can go to you and Nikita and
That's
say, like, this
right.
is what we need to do, and we're going to do it together, right? Because we've been doing it together.
We've
and so
been doing it.
Yes, exactly.
I got goosebumps, y'all. And I also have to make sure before we end our time together that I check in on you. We do a check-in to make sure that people are physically, socially, and emotionally well. So I just want to check in and make sure that you are taking care of yourself, because this political climate, especially when extremists are out here getting loud and doing all the things, that Monisha is taking care of herself. So let us know what you are doing to take care of yourself, Monisha.
Thanks for this question. I love this so much because I tell my team all the time that if you're down and broken and not taking care of yourself, how do you do this work? And so it's so important to remember that, yes, we may get tired and we work long hours and it's hard. But like, if I am broken, then that is not going to serve anybody. And so there's lots of things that I do. I love reality TV. And so I'm a big Bravo watcher. I probably watch everything that's on there. But I live in New York City, and a benefit of being in New York is I have great access to a lot of shows and theaters, and I just love going to Broadway. And just this week, it didn't matter how crazy it was, I had theater tickets to see two of my favorite loves come together, Nick Jonas and the Jonas Brothers. Nick Jonas is starring in a new show on Broadway, and I had the opportunity to see its first preview. And truly that like hour and a half of calmness and quietness made me ready to go back and check my Slacks, my emails, answer my phone calls. I actually think it made me more strategic. So like really making sure to take that time and energy to just step away and do some of the things that I love. And for me, I was very lucky that it was Broadway and Nick.
I love that so much, Monisha. And I think one of my New Year's resolutions was to look at my phone less. And so going to events or experiences where you really can't look at your phone, you know, a Broadway show, you allow yourself to be transported, right? For that period of time where you're not getting those notifications. Tell us a little more about the reality TV. Are we housewives people? Are we?
I mean, truly, it's everything. I am watching Love is Blind. I'm watching The Bachelor. I'm watching The Housewives.
I love it.
I'm watching Summer House. Like, I think people are always amazed at just how much TV I consume, and also with like the time that I have. But I try not to miss it. It's really important to me to be up on pop culture. And also, I see this a little bit as like a sociology experiment. Like when I'm watching like what the conversations they're having in Love is Blind, for example, politics came up a lot actually this season. And it's a learning opportunity for me to go, oh, like they're not thinking about this in the same way. What can I learn in this moment? Well, also, it's just fun.
I love all of that. And it's so true, right? Because when we can find those moments in the national conversation and the zeitgeist and the cultural conversation that makes sense to talk about our work and talk about our work in a way that resonates with people who don't think of themselves as quote unquote politics people, we build our movement. We grow our movement. We bring more folks in. You know, as a lobbyist, I feel like that is a really interesting, very fascinating job that our volunteers would love to hear more about. Tell us a little bit about when you were going to go into a meeting or when you go into a meeting now with lawmakers, what do you do to kind of hype yourself up and feel confident before you walk in that door? Because it can be a little daunting.
Yeah. Something that I always remind myself, and whenever I'm talking about what does it mean to lobby, is I am a constituent. I am a voter. At the end of the day, these elected officials work for us. And my job is to be there to tell them why this thing benefits them and the work that they're doing. So when I'm preparing for a meeting, I do a couple of things. One, I look at who they are as a person, because I think tapping into the personal is just so, so important. So right now, we're going to March Madness. And so if I'm talking about North Carolina, I'm like, are they Duke or are they Chapel Hill? And depending on how the conversation goes, I may pick to be the opposite of that, right? But like, you know, being able to make it really, really personal in the conversation so that there is a connection, because lobbying is all about relationship building. It's about feeling like I am here to inform you on something and to help you make a decision. And how do you do that? Somebody has to trust you. They have to respect you. They have to believe that you're not going to put them in a bad situation. And so that's why I always go into every meeting trying to connect with the person that I'm talking to first. I also just love talking to people. So like for me, it's like always kind of exciting to have that first conversation to see like what we're going to be able to talk about, where the conversation is going to go. I'll look in their office to see what paraphernalia they have. And if there's something that resonates with me, like that's maybe the thing I talk about. Sometimes I don't even talk about policy in that first conversation. I'll say like why this is important to me, why I do this work, and I want to be a resource to you. I'm here to help you do this, good or bad, right? Like if you have a question that comes up on a bill that maybe you've heard about and you're like, oh, I don't know what to do with this, you deserve to hear both sides of the conversation, and I want to be one of those sides. And then eventually it gets a little tougher and maybe a little feistier, depending on where we are. But I always try to start off with that personal touch.
And have you ever done one of these lawmaker meetings with your mom?
I have. I got a chance to lobby with her in Delaware, which was so
my
fun.
Gosh, tell us about that, because it's one thing to come as you are with like a strong, fierce lady energy, and then you got the fierce lady energy of your mom. Like, tell us what that was like.
Yeah. So I need to start by saying, when I'm in my Everytown role and my mom is wearing her red shirt, I make sure that we're following all the proper protocol.
Of course.
She tries to get information out of me sometimes, and I tell her no. She needs to talk to her chapter leader or her OM, but I am not going to be skirting the rules. No special privileges, Mom, when you're in that shirt. But I did get to do a Delaware Advocacy Day with her, and I got to do some meetings with her. And it's really fun because she's the reason I do this. Like,
yes.
She's been an advocate from day one. We were talking about politics at the kitchen table. She took me with her when she was doing League of Women Voters work. And so, like, it's not actually me in that moment in Delaware with her. It's her. Like, I'm just there to prop her up. She's the voter. She's the constituent. And I let her do the lead. And then she would look at me and be like, Monisha, are you going to say anything? Because she's still my mom.
I love that so much. It's so powerful when this runs in the family. And as you said, you grew up seeing her do that. And I'm sure for her to see you do this now, she's so proud of you. And I'm sure that's a real special moment for her to see you in action as well. We know that you travel across the country a lot and see a lot of our leaders in action. Is there a person or a moment that has recently fueled you, given you hope, made you feel more fired up about this work?
I mean, I want to say that the work that I got to see in New Mexico and also in Hawaii, I think sometimes we especially Hawaii, don't think about it in the same way. And they had one of their largest advocacy days ever. It was the first time we have ever outnumbered the opposition.
Wow.
And it was just amazing, amazing, amazing to see this. And like I said, the chapter in New Mexico is small, but they are mighty and they were tireless. They did not stop. Like between the moms and the students, they were there every single day. And even though the New Mexico work didn't go where we wanted to, it set up the exact foundation we need to run accountability, to remind them we are not going away, that they may not have gotten it done this year, but they will get this done. And the moms are incredible. I mean, talk about my self-care. I hope they were taking naps and drinking plenty of water and doing whatever brings them joy, because I don't know that there was a minute that they weren't working.
Wow, that's incredible. And just that, building that power. If we don't get it this year, we get it the next year. If we don't get it the next year, we just keep going. And I think that's one thing the opposition doesn't have that we have. That's the secret sauce of moms and students, is we keep going. We don't give up.
We keep going. We don't give up. I think I need that on a bumper sticker. Thanks, Kaylin. Monisha, thank you so much for joining us. This has been an informative and powerful conversation with you today. Just before you go, we always like to provide the opportunity if there's anything else that you would like to share with our amazingly powerful, resilient volunteer leaders.
I just want to say thank you. This is my job. This is not your job. And the fact that you're giving up your time and energy to do this, it is seen, it is appreciated. And I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Monisha. Thank you for your
Thank
words.
you.
Thank you for your leadership. And thank you for your tenacity and being willing to do this day in and day out and fight the good fight at every level of government. We appreciate you too.
It makes it a little easier when I have you all by my side.
We appreciate and love you.
Oh, thank you guys.
Yeah. Y'all, I love having Monisha break down what's happening at the state and federal levels right now and how we're fighting back, because we are the resistance. We aren't waiting for Superman. We are out here doing this work.
That's right. You all are the heroes your communities need, and we will not stop fighting to save lives no matter who is in the White House or the State House. The stakes are far too high, and we don't do helpless or hopeless. We roll up our sleeves and get it done.
And we will keep going no matter what. So thank you all for listening to Movement Builders and for the messages that you've sent so far. After our last episode with Greg and Drew, we got some great voice notes from all of you. Here's what you had to say.
Hey everybody, this is Stephanie here on the Students Demand Action team, and I just want to send out a shout out to all of our amazing students in New Mexico and in Colorado who have been making a huge impact at their state capitals recently. I know that 2025 is off to an amazing start. Let's go students, woohoo!
Hi, I'm Justin Wagner. I'm a lawyer at Everytown for gun safety, and wanted to call out the Movement Builders podcast. It's just an excellent place to have conversations, in-depth conversations about the issues across our gun violence prevention space. Keep going. I loved episode 10 and can't wait to see what's next. I also want to shout out all the volunteers out there who work in our state houses across the country in pushing legislation, teaching people about the very problems at the root of our gun violence problem in this country. I know that work is hard, but keep going. You're making a difference. And every day we all draw inspiration from you.
Hey everyone, it's Jill Coletta, proud Virginia Moms volunteer, now on the federal government affairs team here at Everytown. Thanks for all you're doing to fight the good fight, even in these tough times. Thanks for getting loud on Kash Patel, and thanks for everything you're working on to push back on a concealed carry mandate. I'm proud to be in this fight with you.
Hey, it's Megan here on the Demand a Seat team, and I just wanted to say I loved the episodes with Demand a Seat alums, including Anna Albee, Chantel Rock, and Roja Henson. It's been super inspiring to hear their stories, and we hope more of you movement builders take the leap and run for office. We're here to support you.
Yes, thank you so much. We love to hear from you. So please keep sending us your thoughts, feedback, and stories to movementbuilders@everytown.org. Again, it's movementbuilders@everytown.org. And don't forget to share this podcast with your fellow volunteer leaders and team members. Thanks for listening to Movement Builders. I'm Kaylin.
And I'm Nikita. Thank you for all that you do to save lives. It's working.